You know, it's funny. I feel like there's always been a lot of tension in the air between me and Dricus Du Plessis. And frankly, I don't know exactly where it comes from. But in terms of his fight coming up with Sean Strickland, you guys know it's no secret my thoughts on the matter. And my thoughts on the matter are Sean Strickland probably can never beat Dricus Du Plessis. But when I say that, what you have to understand is it has nothing to do with skill. I mean, nothing at all. In fact, I think it was nothing short of magical. The fact that Sean Strickland stood right in front of Dricus all 5 rounds and narrowly lost a split decision. I mean, Israel Adesanya couldn't do that. I mean, not even close. Israel Adesanya got rocked, finished, embarrassed by Dricus trying to stand in front of him. Sean Strickland, his defense is absolutely absurd. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's not good enough to beat Dricus Du Plessis, but what it has to do with is there are just fundamental issues that Sean Strickland has with his game and how it translates into MMA. And essentially, what I think it comes down to is this. You know, a very big criticism I got for my last video talking about Dricus versus Sean Strickland was, how can you say that Strickland can probably never beat DDP? He arguably did beat DDP in the first fight. And what I would say is, look, that was not a one-off occurrence. That was not a one-off occurrence of, Sean Strickland, almost got that split decision. It happens. No, look, every single time Sean Strickland fights a big power puncher, it always ends in a split decision. Even when he practically dominates all 5 rounds, it somehow still ends in a split decision in terms of Paulo Costa. And Dricus is very different than a lot of these big power punchers. That's what you have to understand. Dricus Du Plessis, he is just so much more well-endowed. He's so much more plump. He's just very swollen, very loaded, very stacked. Very veiny. You can see it when he starts getting real sweaty and he starts getting all slick. You just see these muscles fucking popping out of him. He's practically engorged. There's nobody in the middleweight division as hung as he is, who throbs as much as he does. And again, that tension I was talking about is back. You know what I mean? And that's how you know that DDP is a real problem. But again, right, here is the big issue. You just read the judging criteria. Once you fully understand what the judges are supposed to look for, that's where you begin to understand why Sean Strickland kind of struggles in this area. So, of course, judges shall evaluate mixed martial arts techniques such as effective striking/grappling plan A, and that's all you need because evaluations shall be made in the specific order in which the techniques appear above, giving the most weight in the scoring criteria to effective striking/grappling. And when you read what they judge as impact, a judge shall assess if a fighter impacts their opponent significantly in the round, even though they may have not dominated the action. That's just already not sounding good for Sean Strickland because, again, Sean plays a very dangerous game. His defense is on point. He's peppering you with a lot of jabs, but, again, all it takes is a couple of shots from his opponent to completely sway the round. I mean, it specifically says, even though they may have not dominated the action, well, again, you look at the Paulo Costa fight, Paulo was not dominating the action, but if he landed a couple of good shots, well, all of a sudden that fight was a split decision somehow. It's just very, very difficult for Sean here. Impact includes visible evidence such as swelling and lacerations. So, of course, right, DDP's face after the Sean Strickland fight was horrible. But, of course, while visible evidence of lacerations or bruising does weigh heavily, the judges score each round immediately after each round. Okay, so it really only depends on whether or not the laceration or visible evidence occurred in that round. It's not scored as a whole perpetually throughout the fight. And of course, the other big thing is your effective striking/grappling leading to diminishing of your opponent's energy, confidence, abilities, and spirit? Again, this is just hard to do when all you're doing is landing jabs. There were the occasional moment that Sean would land a much bigger shot. I mean, you check this instance right here. He landed a fully winging uncorked overhand on DDP, and he just ate it and kept going. all right? Strickland's shots just weren't doing this. It just wasn't happening. So again, the big point here is it's not that Sean Strickland's not good enough. It's not that he doesn't have the skills. It's just that his fighting style isn't really congruent to what the judging criteria is looking for. Whereas Dricus Du Plessis, when he would land, I mean, pretty much every single shot was significant. So look, with all of this being said, what can Strickland do to win this fight? Where are the areas that he can improve on? I do think there are some key things he needs to change and work on, but on the flip side, I think DDP also has a lot of room for improvement in this matchup as well. Starting off here for Strickland, a big thing about DDP's approach to this fight was he knew he could not be on the back foot. He had to be constantly walking Sean down. He had to hold the center no matter what. And I think because of this, there were a couple of things that he needed to absolutely do. One of which was teep. Sean Strickland's teep is one of his best attacks. And if you can just continuously stab your opponent in the gut over and over and over again over an entire 5-round fight, it absolutely adds up. It zaps your cardio. It just gets more and more tender the more you attack. And that is a great way to potentially deter DDP from just walking at you recklessly as the fight goes on. And in round 1, let's see. Sean Strickland threw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teeps round 1. 7 teeps round 1. Round 2, he threw 1 teep round 2. Round 3, 4, and 5, I don't think he threw a single teep. I don't think he threw a single meaningful teep rounds 3, 4, and 5. His coaches were asking for it. They specifically told him,
don't forget about your teep. That was money in the bank.
He forgot about the teeps, and that is just a significant part of this fight. The other big thing I think for Strickland is, of course, his defense is phenomenal, but a big reason for that is he is 100% defensive when his opponent is throwing punches at him. It's essentially the only thing he's worrying about, and because of that, there were so many moments during this fight where DDP was going after him and missing so badly, and Strickland just was not making him pay for these huge misses. I mean, you look at this sequence right here, DDP swings so heavily that he's completely turned the other way from Sean. This is the moment you step in and try to land a right hand. You try to make him pay for that big miss, but Strickland just wasn't really doing that, so DDP just kept coming. He kept throwing. There was no danger in missing, and eventually he started landing, and that is just an issue no matter what. But towards the very end of the fight is when Strickland started feeling more comfortable landing his counters. But again, it wasn't until the very end of round 4 and little bits here and there during round 5 where DDP was moving in with a jab. Strickland was countering him with these giant overhands, and he was actually landing, and he needs that throughout the entire fight. Again, though, the big issue is, I mean, DDP just fucking walked through this overhand. I mean, it is kind of crazy, but still, he needs more of this throughout the fight to show the judges that he is landing significantly. And I think another very important thing that Strickland needs to do more of is, because Dricus was constantly trying to put him on the back foot, because DDP just was not going to back up, there were so many moments that he was just essentially waiting at Strickland. He wasn't setting up his entries with strikes. No, he was just walking at him. And there were moments, again, more so towards the end of the fight, where Strickland was just stepping in and landing right hands off DDP, just walking at him. And when he was setting up these hooks, it's very wild, it's very open, and there are moments that you need to step all the way in and try to land a right hand. And again, Strickland started doing this towards the very end of the fight, once he started feeling a bit more comfortable. But again, you can't give DDP all of these entries for free. You have to try to make him pay for trying to be reckless against you. I genuinely think if Strickland can do this from the very beginning of the fight and keep it up all 5 rounds, he has a way higher chance of actually winning a decision. I mean, look, the openings are there, and Strickland started finding it again towards round 4 and 5, but just trying to outpoint Dricus with jabs and avoid all of his strikes with defense, it's just a tough ask. It's not impossible, but I just cannot favor Strickland if that's his approach again. But on the flip side to all of this, I do think there are also improvements that DDP can make. For one, I mean, it's no secret, DDP is going to look to wrestle in this fight. And when you go back and you look at the first fight, Sean Strickland really didn't defend any takedowns very well. Almost every takedown he shot, he completed. Now, of course, Strickland had some amazing get-ups from on the bottom, but of course, I would say DDP should try to wrestle more. And when you look at Sean Strickland's defense, there were so many moments in the fight where DDP is rushing forward trying to throw. Sean Strickland is doing his patented lean all the way back, put his arms in the air, and dodge every single punch. But his head is going behind his hips here, all right? This is the moment you shoot right here. I mean, Strickland's hips are just right there to be grabbed. Essentially, every single time Dricus throws any sort of flurry of punches, the takedown is right there. Obviously, in order to complete a takedown, you have to beat your opponent to their hips. You need to get your arms wrapped around their legs, okay? And I mean, it's fucking right there, man. It's right there every single time. And I think this is such an easy thing to capitalize on for DDP that, I mean, his coaches better have fucking recognized because it's as clear as day. But not even just takedowns. Of course, right, Strickland's defense, again, phenomenal. Every single leg kick DDP threw got checked. But if you just throw a flurry and then slam a leg kick, there is no checking it from this position. It's just not going to happen. This is the moment that DDP needs to capitalize on his offense. And I mean, he is very, very capable of that. He already had so many moments of beginning to really mix combinations together well. Throw a few punches and the combination with a body kick. So clearly, he's capable of it, and the opportunity is going to be there every single time he lunges at Strickland with a few punches. And on the subject of kicks, of course, typically the Philly shell does not work well at all when it comes to dealing with kicks, but the way Strickland gets around this is by putting you on the back foot and pressuring you. But because DDP wasn't allowing this to happen, the head kicks were there for him, and he landed quite a few very cleanly. And I think, again, this is something that I would say target even more than he did prior. And I think the other big area that he can capitalize on this fight is every single mat return he attempted against Sean Strickland, he was able to hit. Again, Strickland did an amazing job getting back up to his feet, but when he would try, he was able to put Strickland back down. Even at one point, fucking suplexing him, but for the most part, he would choose to let Strickland go and fight back at range. I would imagine because he just didn't feel the danger from Strickland on the feet. You know, there's very little risk of Strickland finishing you. You know what I mean? That's just probably not going to happen. And of course, because Strickland wasn't finding his counters, he felt very comfortable going after him with all of these giant winging punches. But when you look at DDP's fight against Adesanya, he never just let Adesanya go after getting back up. He would try to hold him up against the fence, and from there he was able to land some decent shots up against the fence. And of course, when you're dealing with a guy as juicy as Dricus, these shots are fucking pretty devastating. And again, right, DDP did not have significant trouble taking Sean Strickland down. And I would say in the rematch, don't let him go. Hold him as long as you physically can and just try to land those short shots up against the fence because it absolutely is significant. And I think for the most part, those are all of the areas either of these guys can improve on from what they already had in the first fight. And I think, look, if Sean Strickland does make all of these improvements, if he starts making Dricus pay for these big misses, if he tries to meet him in the middle and just land straight shots off of DDP's giant hooks, I genuinely think he does have a good shot of winning this fight. But if they both make these improvements, I think you're going to kind of have to give it to DDP here, to be honest. I think, again, Sean Strickland has always fought a very particular way, and I don't know how much he can really change his game around. Whereas you look at Dricus, he fought Robert Whittaker completely different than he fought Adesanya and Sean Strickland. You know, he completely gauged those fights in very different ways. I think DDP is probably more capable of changing up his style, and I think he should be the easy pick here to win this fight. But again, you can't completely count Sean Strickland out, but I just think that fundamentally his style doesn't match up well with the scoring criteria criteria. I think that he already kind of fought to what we've seen his best ability to be against DDP the first time. And I think that for the most part, he probably doesn't stand the chance here. I think it's possible, but you are probably going to have to go DDP on this one.